This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades, and before I get started here today, I want to make sure I remind you guys, as always, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top of when we drop our latest stuff. Also, if you could please as well, give us a 5-star rating. Write us a review. Very appreciated. Very helpful. See if you guys like, dislike, the ways we can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media. So you can find us there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk. We can chat. We can debate. We can discuss. And it seems that there's a discussion amongst at least the people around the NBA that they will be coming back very, very soon. And by coming back, I mean start to be able to practice and scrimmage and stuff to get ready for the season. Obviously, they're not going to start back up anytime soon. But according to sources, the belief is that the NBA teams are expecting guidelines around June 1st, so about a little over a week. I guess that's a week from Monday, Memorial Day. So a week from Monday, they're expecting guidelines for the players' return. Now, they've been off since March. All major sports in America have been off since March. Obviously, there's been some MMA here, a little NASCAR there. But for generally speaking, all the major team sports are done. And they have been done, like I said, for going almost 3 months now, depending on when these leagues start back up. And there was talk about whether it was going to be the MLB first, or the NBA first, and who knows, maybe NHL, MLS could have slipped in there. But it seems as if the NBA is going to be that team to take that first step. And that's an interesting position to be in, but it's a position, in my mind, that makes some level of sense, because since they were the first league to shut everything down, it makes sense that they would then, or thus, be the first league to start everything back up and be the one to bite that bullet, fall on that sword, whatever you will, in order to be that team, alright, or be that league, I should say, to be alright, we're going to give this a shot. Now, if you've listened to the podcast, you know that my opinion on this is pretty much stayed the same. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't know if it'll work, even for the short period of time that they may have the season. I don't know if you're not, it would be shocking to me if they go the whole time without getting any cases. And like I said, then once that happens, then you open up a whole can of worms. You got to figure out what you're going to do from there. But they're always going to give it a shot. And as sports fans, or as a sports fan, and as sports fans for all you guys listening out there, you know that this was bound to happen anyway. It is what it is. There's not much, whatever your opinions on this are, they are. But at the end of the day, teams weren't going to miss out, and leagues weren't going to miss out on all the money, especially the TV money, that they're going to get from trying to finish up the season. Again, will it work? Who knows? But at the very least, they were going to give it an effort. And so, none of this is shocking to me. It was just a wait and see kind of moment. I didn't. Now, again, me not being involved with the money. If it were up to me, I'd be I don't know if it's safe, just because, again, I don't know how you're going to be able to police everybody, keep everybody safe within the guidelines and confines of wherever you house all these people. And house all the people associated with getting the season completed. But, like I said, money talks, and it was always going to get finished. So, like I said, June 1st is when people seem to expect, or when teams seem to expect, the guidelines are going to come out. It was all from ESPN, Woj, and Zach Lowe. As I said, NBA teams expecting the league office will issue guidelines around June 1st that will allow franchises to start recalling players who have left their markets as a first step towards a formal ramp-up for the season's resumption, sources told ESPN. Teams expect a similar timeline from the league on when they'll be allowed to expand individual workouts. Already underway with in-market players to include more team personnel. Sources said the NBA suspended the 2019-2020 season on March 11th because of the coronavirus pandemic. The league is discussing a step-by-step plan for resumption of the season that includes an initial 2-week recall of players into the marketplaces for a period of quarantine, 1 to 2 weeks of individual workouts, 2 to 3 of formal training camp. Sources told ESPN, barring an unforeseen turn of events, many NBA players, executives, owners, MBPA elders believe Commissioner Adam Silver greenlight the return to play in June, with games expected to resume sometime before the end of July. The NBA is considering the 2-site format between Orlando and Las Vegas, which makes the most sense at this time. Also, they've discussed how to navigate the final regular season, whether it should be play-in tournaments, the playoff formats, whether all 30 teams we brought back, you just bring back the teams that have a viable shot at making the playoffs in theory. Well, it's still on the table, so we'll have to see how that goes. Many players have stayed in the markets to work out, but I know some players, including Luka Doncic, has flown back into Europe, which is kind of funny because I believe I saw something in Italy. Whenever they start opening back up, they're going to ban travel or people coming from America. So I just thought that was funny, just because Italy had their own issues with the coronavirus. But like seeing the way in which America has handled it, whether you think it's good or bad, they're just like, yeah, no, we're not going to deal with that. So it's interesting that Luka chose to go back to Europe and now has to come back, and obviously the whole travel thing doesn't seem like that safe of a thing to be doing. But hey, I guess it's the decision he made and the decision the Mavericks knew and the NBA knew when it was happening. So not much you can do now. Silver indicated that North American team sports commissioners had indicated to the president and governors that they could need their assistance in helping players return to the country, and they expect to receive it. So obviously there may be something that needs to get worked out in order to get Luka or other players, obviously it's not just him, but I know Luka was one of the bigger names, back into the country from overseas. But it seems like they're gonna get that help, is what they expect at least. So it'll be interesting to see, like I said, how it works and what the official plan will be, because obviously there's been a lot of things floated out there, a lot of things discussed, but nothing really concrete. This is like the first almost sort of concrete thing we've had. Obviously, I think it was a week or so ago. Adam Silver said they were gonna try to make a decision in the next couple weeks, next 2 to 4 weeks, something like that. And this June 1st date, at least it's not really a deadline, it's just a date, seems to be the first, like, all right, they're going to have a plan this day, then everything will start getting, because obviously you won't really have an idea of when things are going to come back until you have a date that things start back up again. That's really what we've been waiting on at this point, just a day like, all right, on this day we're going to start doing something, thus that means we can then plan to do other things down the line, because again, with this, and getting the players back, getting the buyers back in shape, getting the teams back together, getting the testing in place, and getting the sites and everything, make sure it's up to proper code and standards, it's going to take some time. So again, you can't just like do this and like snap your fingers and be like, all right, yeah, no, we say like June 1st, everybody come back, and then like we'll start the season up next week. That's not possible. But like I said, until anything was going to happen, they needed to get the ball rolling to a degree, and this is that. But an interesting thing that I saw was that Lakers forward Jared Dudley says that there's a misconception that the NBA would resume its season in a bubble location that is so closely monitored that players would be restricted from exiting the premises until all games are finished. You will be allowed to leave, Dudley said Wednesday on a video call with reporters, citing conversations he has been privy to with NBA Commissioner and MLBPA Executive Director Michelle Roberts. And just because you leave, if we are going to give you that leeway, you have to come back. And well, if you come back with Corona, you can't play. I mean, obviously, with the league's hiatus, like obviously they've talked about like Orlando and Florida, Orlando's in Florida, Orlando and Las Vegas. Dudley also said that there will be rigorous testing inside the bubble, which Silver has likened to a campus environment with the primary places players will spend time, including hotels, gymnasiums, and dining areas. It was reported the goal is to have you go to a market for. The goal isn't to have you go to a market and sit for 2 months in a hotel room, which is what Silver himself has said. So this isn't that shocking. Dudley also said that he figures that some players won't be able to resist expanding on the amenities the league provides and will make extra decisions to visit people and entertain themselves. When you're dealing with 300 different players, if you've seen the Michael Jordan doc, every team's got a Dennis Rodman. I don't know about that. He just doesn't have green and blue hair. No one is flying to Vegas in the middle of the season. No one is going to miss skipping a practice in the finals game to do to wrestle with Hulk Hogan. That's not happening on every team. Come on, Jared Dudley. Most players aren't good enough to have that sort of leeway. So let's not go that far. Maybe we have some people that are a little reckless, but most teams don't have that. Someone that out there. So I don't know about that one. He said there's always someone who's outside the box who does that, takes the risk, and says, "Hey, listen, man, I'm healthy. I feel good." It would be somewhat selfish, Dudley said, for a player to do such a thing. That is the case, not just because he could put others at risk, obviously. Though apparently Dudley believes that if the player were to contract the coronavirus inside or outside of the bubble, Dudley believes frequent testing would allow it to show it rather quickly. You would hope so. But it takes, 5 to 14 days, I think, to show up, even if you're testing all the time. Like you're going to test negative, and then boom, one day you might test positive, and you don't know how many people you've interacted with in that time frame since between the negative and positive test. So like I said, that sounds good in theory, but he said some other things as well, but I just thought that was an interesting comment. Just the fact that, well, again, it's not just him, because Adam Silver said this on, I think in his, what was it, a conference call May 8th? He had a conference call with the players. He said that they're not just going to be forced. And again, that makes sense, because it's going to be hard to just force these players to sit in a hotel room, even if that was the plan. And even if that still is the plan. It's going to be hard to convince them to come back and do that, because that's not how they lived their life at any point while being an NBA player. So why would they want to do that now? Like I said, at the same time, it is going to be curious how much leeway the players have. Because again, with a disease like this, you can get it anywhere, and anyone can get it. It's not like it's just a certain group of people, a certain age group, a certain ethnicity, whatever. Like, literally anybody can get this. So, with that, and the fact there's no vaccine, obviously no one's immune to it. So I'm saying with that, anytime you leave your house, technically you're at risk. But I'm saying if you're just allowing players to do what they would do in other cities, which is like go out to bars or, well, clubs, I guess, if they're open. Who knows if they'll be open by then. Maybe they will. A lot of states are opening back up now. Hang out with various groups of people, stuff like that. And I don't imagine everyone will be wearing masks while they do this. So that I'm saying then you're putting yourself at risk, and thus putting your teammates at risk, and putting your coaches and your staff at risk. So I'm saying while leeway is good, and again, they're all grown men, more or less. So you can't just force them to sit and, like I said, sit in a hotel room for 2 months, however long it takes them to finish the season. You can't also just give them free reign, because that's a little bit dangerous in my opinion as well. Like I said, if they're just allowed to do whatever in these cities for 2 months, especially if one of them's Vegas, if Vegas is open to regular people at the time, that could very well be a disaster. Orlando, I mean, especially if it's on the Disney complex, there's only so much you can do. I mean, obviously you can get off if they're able to, but like Vegas, that would be a whole different ball game in terms of if they're just allowed to have free roam in Vegas for 2 months. But up to 2 months, obviously, because not everybody's going to make it to the finals. And I'm just saying, I thought that was interesting, the fact that they're kind of likening it to a campus environment, especially since some schools are talking about not having classes in the fall, or setting specific guidelines for classes in the fall for the specific reason of it could be too hard to contain an entire campus. Obviously, they're not going to have thousands and thousands of players, so that aspect of it is a little bit different. Like I said, at the same time, there's a lot of schools that are like, we don't know if we're going to have classes in the fall because we don't know if we'll be able to handle it. And like I said, if there's an outbreak in the school, what do you do? Like, do you just have to, then you just go and shut the thing down like they did this year and just kick everybody off campus again? It's it could be a whole mess if there's like I said, there's an outbreak. Not like one student gets it or a couple students get it. If there's a cluster, even if there's just one dorm of students where there's a lot of cases in the dorm, but you can't just allow them to not go to class and then keep everyone else in class, because that's not fair to them. Then also, like, in order for them to get food, they got to go to the dining halls, they got to order out, they got to do a bunch of things. And if there's like I said, if there's a outbreak within the dorm, then you're putting a lot of other people at risk, because if you keep the classes open, then they're going to leave that building, go to class, they're going to interact with a bunch of students, they're going to walk past a bunch of students, they're going to be in the same common areas as a bunch of students, and it could be a whole mess. Because like I said, this is a much smaller campus atmosphere, if that is what it is likened to, but at the same time, could still be dangerous all the same. But, I mean, I would like to believe the players and the commissioner and everyone involved understand the risks of this, and the fact that there is a best case scenario where things go perfectly fine and nothing happens in 2 months, and there's a worst case scenario where there's an outbreak on multiple teams. You have to be prepared for for those two possibilities and all possibilities in between. So I hope that they're prepared for that. Because again, the whole thing where they're just going to quarantine the one guy and not like shut down the whole league if a player tests positive, or shut down like a team, seems a little dangerous to me. But again, I'm not the one in charge. I'm not the one that's going to stand to lose a lot of money if things don't go down. So it's hard for me to judge that. But it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see, like I said, once the guidelines are put in place, what happens with that, and also this is how it all goes. Because again, we're all going to be watching, we're all going to be curious, but at the end of the day, this is kind of going to be almost kind of a tester run just for because I imagine MLB will soon to follow, but then also like the NFL season, the NHL, MLS, maybe other leagues around the country, and also just like states themselves. Obviously, they're starting to reopen now, but just like as they've relaxed the restrictions more and more, the way that the NBA handles could be a guideline for how other people or other states or leagues or whoever try to handle it, in terms of like the way they test the people, whether they do temperature checks, whether they like the different restrictions they try to have, all that stuff. So it'll be interesting to watch and be interesting to monitor, and I know we'll all be keeping our eyes on that once that starts back up. But speaking of starting up, I know the NFL seems to still be dead set on playing. Not shocking at all. But with that, there are some potential rule changes that we could have this upcoming season that are going to, I guess, go to a vote very soon. So we'll discuss some of those rule changes and how I think they could work right after this break. So stay right there.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back with one of the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, it seems like the NFL has been making a lot of adjustments to different things recently. As they talked about in the last podcast, they made adjustments to their... Or, was it the last one or 2 podcasts ago? Let me double check. Yeah, it was 2 podcasts ago. No. Oh, no. It was the last podcast. I guess it was both of them, actually. Talking about changes to the Rooney Rule. And, like, obviously, implement new things to get more minority coaches hired, having the fellowship program, having teams have to interview, like, or not being able to block assistant coach from interviewing from, like, coordinator positions, different things like that. So they made that change, and now there's potentially changes on the field that the NFL is looking to make. Or at least, well, potentially. Obviously, we don't know that for certain. But among them, the NFL is making plans to experiment in the 2020 preseason with a new officiating positions that would be similar to a sky judge. The experiment were mere proposals put forth by the Ravens and Chargers to create a booth umpire and a senior technology advisor. Each official would have access to video and the ability to either make officiating calls or communicate to the referee based on what they see. Clubs give a list of potential rule changes Thursday, and team owners will be asked to vote for proposals virtually on the 28th, which is next Thursday. The booth umpire and technology advisor proposals were not endorsed by the competition committee, meaning they are unlikely to be approved as permanent changes. Instead, the committee recommended a preseason experiment, which could work. Or again, that's kind of like with the Saints thing last year with the pass interference, and they probably should have given it like a trial run first before they just made it an official rule. I understand Saints fans are mad, blah, 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 but at the same time, that rule was a disaster because they basically never got overturned. So it was like, what was the point? And I'm just saying, you would have realized that in the preseason if they did a preseason. So like, oh, this isn't going to work. That's supposed to, like I said, enforcing a full rule, but it was basically just so that they could get Saints fans and the organization to quiet down because they're going to bring up a lawsuit against the league or whatever, which was foolish. But like I said, this probably would work a little bit better if it's just an option, if it's just like a preseason experiment. Coaches have been lobbying for additional officiating help for several years, and the league is looking for new ways to improve officiating after its failed one-year experiment of allowing pass interference calls to be reviewed by replay in 2019, like I said. Meanwhile, momentum is growing for another team-proposed rule change, an alternative to onside kicks put forth by the Philadelphia Eagles. Instead of kicking off after a score late in the fourth quarter, a team would have the option for one offensive play from the 25-yard line. It would need to gain possession at least 15 yards. It would need to gain at least 15 yards to retain possession, Owners rejected a similar proposal last year from the Broncos, but the league did try it out during the 2019 Pro Bowl. Since the 2018 season, when the league instituted new kickoff rules, the recovery rate of onside kicks has been 10.5%. It was 19.5% from 2001 to 2017, according to ESPN stats and information. The competition committee has endorsed 2 minor rule changes for owners to consider: expanding defensive player protection to a returner who has secure possession, but hasn't had the opportunity to ward off impending contact, and changing a loophole that last season allowed the New England Patriots and Tennessee Titans, among others, to drain clock by committing multiple dead ball fouls while the clock was running. Also to be discussed, will be making permanent the expansion of automatic replay reviews to include scoring plays and turnovers negated by foul and any extra point attempt. The Eagles propose restoring preseason and regular season overtime to 15 minutes and implementing rules to minimize impact of the overtime coin toss, but they have withdrawn those ideas. So, the ones that are actually going to get put up to a vote, it seems like, because again, a lot of these teams submit potential rule changes, and most of them just get shot down. As like I said, they talked about most of them get withdrew, I should say, because they're going to get shot down. Similar to how they tabled the Rooney Rule discussion because it was like probably wouldn't get shot down. So again, most teams don't feel like wasting everybody's time, so they're at least going to try to come up with a rule that has a chance of passing. And though I would like to find a way for the coin toss to not matter as much, because again, even though they did adjust it to where at least you need to score a touchdown for the game to be over, not especially in professional sports, not having given both teams the opportunity to get the ball seems kind of foolish in my personal opinion. But like I said, that'll be a rule change for I guess later down the line. So the first rule change, the onside kick rule change, as I think that was in the AAF. They had that first, and I forget if they had that in the XFL as well. But that's one that's been kind of gaining steam in recent years, just because it's like onside kicks are like useless now. Like no one recovers them. They're basically just like a waste of time for most of the offenses. So it's like, what's the point of having it? And so it's like, all right, at least if there's a chance. I mean, most teams don't convert 4th and 15, but I mean that's not impossible. I guess technically it's not impossible to get an onside kick. It just doesn't happen. But it's not impossible to get a 4th and 15. So it's like, yeah, I would want that too. If I were an NFL team, personally at least. So yeah, I could definitely see that potentially passing, just because again, it makes some sense. Like, instead of putting the ball in the hands or the feet of one of the players that is not really that involved that often in the game, why not potentially put it in the hands of your best player and give yourself a shot? And again, it's not your call. I mean, granted, when it's onside kicks, you're not caught by surprise either. But like, it's just like the offense and the defense. Like you not that you don't practice onside kicks, but that's like most of the game is offense and defense. So there's special teams here and there, but like the majority of the game is made up of offensive and defensive snaps. So with that, it's like, all right, it makes sense for them to be on the field in these positions. And plus, like I said, I think the Broncos, the reason why I didn't pass last year was because it was from the 35 as opposed to the 25. And I think that's a big difference because you start at the 35, even if you don't get it, say you gain like 10 yards, the other team still at the opposing 45 late in the game, they're probably just going to be running the clock out. Like, it's going to be a long field goal attempt if they can get it at all. At least not at the 25, that if you stop them, that benefits the defense too, because again, now you're getting it, as long as they don't gain the 15 yards, like I said, that you're getting it inside your opponent's 40, which in theory, if you can gain a decent amount of yards, just say, you'll be able to kick a field goal at worst. If, like, again, the team's trying to bleed, is needing to like burn their timeouts and stuff, and you're trying to just bleed clock or running the ball. Like I said, that seems at least like a decent proposal to me. I know, I believe Patrick Mahomes was definitely intrigued by that one. I think he sent out like the eye emojis when he saw that. Or no, he put out the 4th and 15, dot, like the sweating emojis. I think that's what that is. But yeah, like, I mean, I know the Chiefs wouldn't be afraid of a 4th and 15. I imagine Kyle Shanahan wouldn't be afraid of a 4th and 15. The Bucks now with Brady might not be afraid of a 4th and 15. I don't think the Saints are that afraid of a 4th and 15. So I think a lot of offenses wouldn't be afraid. And then if on the flip side, if you're like the Steelers defense, you're not afraid of stopping a team on 4th and 15. If you're on the Niners, if you're say like someone like the Ravens, I'm trying to think what the good defenses were last year. No, those are 3 of the better ones. So yeah, if you're any of those teams, you're not that afraid of a 4th and 15. You think you should be able to stop them. So like I'm saying, onside kicks are a little bit. I mean, there's a skill. There's also more luck because you got to kick a ball and get it to bounce right. Like there's less luck involved with just completing a 4th and 15 play in theory. Again, because you have plays for 3rd and long, 4th and long that you call. And so this shouldn't be that new for the teams. And then, like I said, also the other addition was the skybox judge, which again is going to be a preseason experiment, which I think is what best for any officiating change should be a preseason experiment. Most of these like actual in-game rule changes, I think can work, but anything that has to involve the officials, I feel like you need to test it out in the preseason just to see how it works, just to see how it would go down. Just because, again, you run into the situation where you have like I said with the Saints last year, where you try to implement a rule to like appease them, and then now it doesn't work, and like you could tell from the first, I think you could tell in preseason, like this isn't going to work because they weren't overturning it, even though on replay it's like clearly pass interference or whatever. You know, I think it was the other thing, like you could only review pass interference, you couldn't review like defensive holding or like illegal contact, like different things like that, and I'm like, that's foolish. Like, if you're going to be able to be able to review everything, because if it was holding but it wasn't pass interference necessarily, because like he grabbed you and he pulled you down, then like by the time he let go, like there wasn't any interference once the ball was in the air, that should still be reviewable if you're going to be reviewing these type of things. That was another issue. It was like too specific. It was like just pass interference, and I was like, that there's other fouls that happen, so that didn't make any sense. But yeah, so like I said, like the booth view technology advisor, kind of just being able to oversee things and being able to potentially like phone down and talk to the people on the field if they see something, or I guess go based on what they see. I think that could be helpful, because obviously when you have on the field, most of the penalties at least aren't reviewable, or like not all things are reviewable at the time. So like obviously we know at home because we can like watch the replays, or we can like go back and see things, or it shows different angles on the broadcast and stuff, but you don't get that on the field when you're just there. So I'm saying having a guy that has that angle and has that view can be like, oh, actually such and such happened. I don't know exactly how they would implement it. I don't know if it would just be for, I guess, well, because stuff that's reviewable, you could just have a review normally, but I guess it's just like anything else where it's like, oh, hey, like there was pass interference on this player, oh, yeah, the guy grabbed the face mask, or like, oh, there was holding, oh, or the guy stepped out of bounds. Like in situations where that there aren't reviews called for, I think it's good to have an official and some technology guy up top to get a bird's eye view, if you will, of everything. Because like I said, in theory, you want to be as good as you can, get everything as right as you can, and just having people on the field does not benefit that, because again, and I understand the human error aspect of it, but again, if the purpose is to get things right, you should allow yourself to get things right. That's why I don't understand why there's not I know they have like a pylon camp, I think it should be, at this point now, we're far enough along in civilization, in my opinion, to have some sort of sensor in the ball once it crosses the goal line. So you know how to review those type of things. You don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. You can be like, all right, once the ball crosses over the goal line, like it lights up or does something, or there's like a little thing that flashes, whatever you want to do. That's like I'm saying, that should be easy stuff. We have a pylon cam, but we have no way to put something in the ball, and I guess maybe they're afraid it would break or whatever. Like I said, that's not my job necessarily to figure out how that part of it would work, because I'm not a technology guy. But like I'm saying, there should be more ways to view things and oversee things than we have currently, in my opinion. Like I said, that would be potentially a way to do that. So we'll see how that goes in the preseason, and like I said, we'll see, well, if they pass it, and we'll see about this onside kick thing, because I think that should pass, because I don't know who would be against that necessarily. Like, there's no real reason to be against that, because onside kicks don't work, so it's like, and they're already trying to like limit special teams anyway, so it's like, alright, I don't know who would be mad about taking that out of the game. Like I said, I could be wrong. I guess we'll find out next week when they vote, but I feel like the onside kick thing is a good idea. I've always been in favor of trying to do that away. Ever since they changed the kickoff, it's basically pointless. You know, a couple guys can get an onside kick. Everyone else is just like kick it right to the guy, and you just hope that he drops it. Basically, that's where we're at with it. But yeah, so we'll see how that vote turns out. So after this next break, we're going to come back, and there's a lot of discussion today, especially, and there has been a good amount of discussion over this off season about Dak's contract and the fact that it still hasn't been signed yet. There was some numbers thrown out. They may be true, they may not be true. They were refuted, but again, we'll talk about them just because both sides have no real reason to say whether this is true or not. So we'll talk about that, and also how we got here and how I think both sides have screwed this up to some degree. So we'll talk about all that right after this break. Stay right there.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, I mean, like I said, been a lot of discussion about Dak and other quarterbacks throughout the offseason. Talked about a couple episodes ago about how I'm over the Dak and Wentz debates. It's just like, it's futile at this point. People on one side aren't going to switch over to the other side and like vice versa. Like, you believe whoever you believe is better. There's not really a wrong answer. There's not really a right answer. Both of them are good. At the end of the day, who really cares? But, I mean, if sports wouldn't be as fun to talk about if you weren't debating them per se and trying to convince people of your point. But then again, with this, there's no real convincing. Because again, this isn't like a topic where people are like, oh yeah, no, like I agree, I'll switch sides. Like, this is very much, you're basically like entrenched in on that kind of debate, so it's like, it's pointless. So like I said, Dak's been discussed a lot. And another thing that was discussed a lot with him was his contract. The fact that he didn't have one yet, which is weird, but whatever. And the fact that he's currently on the franchise tag. Or, well, I guess he hasn't signed it yet, but he's been offered the franchise tag. And then even more buzz was stirred up today when Chris Sims apparently reported that he turned down a 5-year, $175 million contract, which would have made the highest paid quarterback ever. And apparently, a part of the reason was Dak was seeking north of $45 million in the final year of his new deal in order to, like I said, adjust for what the future market at the position could be. But then also there's been something that was like kind of refuted from, I guess, both the Cowboys side and his agent side, though. Again, even if it were true, there's no reason for them to put their name out on that. Like, if I'm Dak's agent, there's no reason for me to leak that information out. And if I'm the Cowboys, there's no reason for me to leak that information out. Like, that does neither side know any good at this point to leak that information out. So, of course, they're both going to refute it. Apparently, they said that they've never really discussed anything about the numbers, just mainly the years. And if that's true, then that's even worse. Because I'm just like, how have you been having this talk for basically since the beginning of last season. Well, since last off season. And you guys haven't discussed numbers yet. That doesn't seem likely to me. So I know they have, but it's just that I don't know if they discuss numbers like this. So, like I said, that was refuted, and that kind of drove into a whole debate on how good is Dak and blah blah blah. And that's not really the main point of my discussion here today. What I was going to talk about is how we got here. So, last offseason, I think they gave DeMarcus. Yeah, I think they gave DeMarcus Lawrence the big deal. That was in free agency. Or no. Oh no, did he get it 2 years ago? I don't remember. But I know Zeke held out. They gave him a new deal. They gave Dan Smith a new deal. They gave La'el Collins a new deal. Didn't give one to Amari. Oh no, yeah, I think they did give DeMarcus Lawrence a new deal. And then I remember he got surgery. He said he was gonna put off the surgery until he got a new deal. And then this offseason they've given Amari Cooper a new deal, and obviously they've signed some free agents here. They had a good draft. So they paid everybody else more or less that deserved to be paid. They didn't pay Barrett Jones, so take that back. Not everybody else. 90% of the people. Like I said, outside of Byron Jones, but that was basically a well-known fact throughout a well-known rumor, I should say, not a fact, but a well-known discussion point room, or whatever you want to call it, throughout the season was that he was probably going to walk. And they let him walk. Didn't really seem to put up too much of a fight about it, and we'll see how that goes for them, because obviously he was their best corner the last 2 years. So we'll see how they adjust in that regard. But yeah, so they paid everybody else, outside of Byron Jones, except Dak. Why? Not exactly sure. Especially when last offseason, both Carson Wentz and Jared Goff, two quarterbacks in his own draft class, though obviously drafted much higher, but that maybe have been even less of a reason to get the deal done because they had an extra year on their contract. But whatever. They got their extensions, big money extensions. I think Russell Wilson readjusted his contract, got an extension. So he's now the highest paid quarterback currently in terms of average value or whatever. And then Dak went out, didn't really make too much fuss about the contract, had a very good year. The team didn't do that well, but individually he was good. And then now here we are. Then there was the time before free agency, didn't get a contract done, slaps a franchise tag on him, and he hasn't signed it, nor have they come to a contract agreement. And then here we are on May 21st when I'm recording this, and he's still not signed, which is weird for a quarterback if you believe in him. Now, if you think he's Kirk Cousins, then alright, that makes sense, because I wasn't really sure, and neither was Washington, how good Kirk Cousins was, because they didn't really do that much during his time as a starter there, so it was do we really want to invest a lot of money into this position? I mean, granted, they have Haskins now. I don't know exactly if he's the guy for sure, but they have him. Kirk is now with Minnesota. He's won one playoff game in 2 years there, so not a whole lot of success, but more than Washington's had. And like I said, this is where the situation is going. Because when your team has faith in you, generally speaking, they give you a contract. That's just how these things work. So from the Cowboys side of things, they mess this up in my opinion, because they let both of the quarterbacks in his own class get signed before him. So now that set the market for his class specifically on what a new deal should look like. So now his camp has those baseline numbers. And now due to the fact that they haven't signed him yet, if they let Mahomes sign, or Deshaun Watson, who both could potentially sign extensions this offseason, then that completely throws the whole market out of whack. I mean, obviously, Mahomes is going to get... I mean, you should be just walking... What's his name? I think it's Clark Hunt, the owner. I know one of his last name is Hunt. And and they should give him a blank check. Just whatever you want. I mean, his 2 seasons as a starter, he's been, in my opinion, the best quarterback in football over the last 2 years. Won MVP, got hurt this past season, still won a Super Bowl, had a great playoff run, came back from down 10 late in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl. Not really much more you can ask for in a 2-year span, and probably should have been going back-to-back again if D4 just lines up all on sides. Then they've gone to back-to-back Super Bowls, maybe potentially even won back-to-back Super Bowls. Who knows? Because if Rams play like they did against the Patriots, then they probably beat them. But yes, what I'm saying. So then he's going to throw the whole market out of whack. I guarantee Dak's not going to deserve those numbers. But like I said, if he gets like $45 million a year, then all right, Dak could ask for like 40. It's less than Mahomes. Like that's not like it's outrageous, but it's not like that outrageous because again, the top guy's getting 45. I'm making less than him, and his numbers were better than his. Granted, he missed 2 games, but they were better than his. Granted, one team won the Super Bowl, blah blah blah. But so I'm saying, so the fact that they haven't got this done, now you're in danger of having the market set for you, which is not what you want. And then, like I said, on Dak's side of things, he's messed us up, in my opinion, because he hasn't used any of his leverage. And now he has little to no leverage because Andy Dalton's there. Now, is Andy Dalton better than Dak? No. But does Andy Dalton prove that he can win games in the league and get to the playoffs? Yes, and the offense should be fine. So if Dak wants to sit out, then they shouldn't be a complete disaster with Andy Dalton there. Or I guess even in the parallel universe that may or may not exist, where Dak gets traded, then, like I said, Andy Dalton is probably good enough to get them at least, make them at least serviceable. They're not going to be a complete disaster with him. So I'm saying he lost his leverage there by the fact that they went out and signed a quality veteran backup due to the fact that he got released. And also, from what I've seen and from what I've heard, there's been no implication from Dak that he would ever sit out. He wasn't going to do it last year, like Zeke did. Like Zeke was down in, I think it was Cabo, wherever, working out until he got his new deal. I completely understood. And then, like I said, Dak has not said that. He doesn't seem like he's going to miss any training camp, or assuming they have, he's not going to miss any. He wasn't going to miss any off-season workouts if they had them. He isn't going to miss any games. And I'm saying, if that's true, then what do I have to rush to get you a new deal for? You can just play on you can just play on the franchise tag. You're making a lot more than you made the first 4 years of your career. I think he's ranked, I think it was 7th overall in the cap hit for a quarterback this upcoming season at this franchise tag. So again, we're giving you $30+ million for a year. You do well, get us to the playoffs, get deep in the playoffs. All right, boom, you get a contract extension. No problem. If you don't, then we can choose to walk away, choose to franchise you again. It's up to us. But I'm saying, unless you're willing to sit out in order to not, like I said, use whatever leverage you do have, because again, the team is better with him than they are with Andy Dalton. They could be decent, but their ceiling is higher. They're going to be a better team, a better offense, all that stuff. If Andy Dalton is not on the field, because there's a reason why he's a backup currently. So I'm saying, if Dak isn't willing to do that, then what reason does Jerry Jones and Steve Jones have to get this deal done anytime soon? So like I'm saying, both sides of this are doing this wrong, in my opinion. The Cowboys are prolonging this when both quarterbacks in your draft class have already got a new deal, so you got your market set on you in that regard. And now, the more you wait, the more chance other quarterbacks could get signed to extensions. Now that messes up the market. And then, like I said, Dak hasn't used his leverage properly. If he says, I'm going to sit out training camp if I don't have a new deal, and he needs to stop training camp if they don't have a new deal. Well, if he said that if he said that like last year, he's like, I'm going to sit out, because Zeke was sitting out. He's like, I'm going to sit out too if I don't get a new deal. Then they would there's probably a deal done by now. Like I said, now the leverage he had in that is kind of damaged due to the fact that Andy Dalton's there, and they could, in theory at least, be decently competitive with him under center. Instead, if Andy Dalton was not there, then he could just be like, I'm going to sit out. Then they would have to make a decision. But with Andy Dalton there for a lot less money than Dak's going to get paid this year, then I'll say, okay, you want to sit out? Cool, we'll roll the dice. And then again, if they start out bad, then all right, then he'll get his extension. And if they start out good, then hey, we can continue to push this can down the line. But it was just weird for me to see, because again, I'm not like the biggest Dak guy, but I don't think he's like trash. Like I think he's like a solid quarterback. Like, he may not be the reason you win a Super Bowl, but he's definitely not gonna like. He may not be the reason you lose it either. Like he's like Jimmy Garoppolo in the Super Bowl and in the playoffs. Kyle Shanahan was actively trying not to get him to throw the ball. I don't think Dak is that, where you're going to be actively trying to not let him throw. Again, Zeke is the better player in my opinion, so I'm going to say why giving him the ball makes sense. But you're not going to be actively avoiding Dak throwing the ball. Like I said, I don't. You can tell me the running game was working, blah, blah. If Kyle Shanahan had Patrick Mahomes, he's not having him throw, 8 times? Like, that's not happening. I don't care how good we're doing on the ground. It's not going to happen. Andy Reid will never do that. I don't care if they ran for 300 yards on the ground. Mahomes is still going to throw the ball at least 20 times. It's just a fact. That's just going to happen. And that's like a bad day if he throws the ball 20 times. That's what I'm saying. And then so that was weird. And then also the whole the fan base thing. People are like, oh yeah, well, I'm not a Cowboys fan, so I don't know what all their Twitter was saying, but you've seen some things like, oh, the Cowboys just let him go, let him walk, rescind the tag, trade him, do whatever. And I'm like, whoa, where are they getting this better quarterback from? Again, is Andy Dalton serviceable? Sure. But if they're a team that has Super Bowl aspirations and that's what they're paying guys as if they think they are that caliber team, you don't start Andy Dalton right now in 2020. I'm sorry. If you're a team that thinks you can win a Super Bowl, Andy Dalton should not be your quarterback. He could be a backup quarterback. That's completely fine. Short period of time, he could do wonders, a la Nick Foles. But for a long period, he shouldn't be the guy. And I'm saying if that's what they want to do, that's what fans think they should do. I'm like, that makes zero sense. Dak was very good last year. The team record wasn't great, but he was good. Where are they finding this better quarterback? And why do they all? Why I don't understand why fans side with owners in these negotiations. It's not your salary cap. It's not your money. It's not your job in order to figure out how to make all the money work. That's for the GM. That's for the owners, people like that. You just want to have good players on your team. So letting good players walk because they quote unquote want too much money makes zero sense. They're good. They want that money for a reason because they're good. So just pay them. It's that simple. You pay people what they are worth. And if a guy is performing to a level that he's worth $35, $36, $37 million a year, all right, that's the price of doing business. You draft guys and hope they're good in order so you have to pay them. Like, you don't draft guys, hope they're good, you get them for cheap, and then you just move on. Like, that doesn't... Maybe, like I said, the quarterback situation, the rookie deal thing has worked out, and obviously once you start paying guys a lot, then you have to cut here, cut there, like reduce spending and stuff like that, and the quarterback has to make up for it, so I get that. But you just think Dak should take some sort of weird hometown discount like Tom Brady did just because Tom Brady did. That's dumb. No one else is in Tom Brady's position where he has a wife that makes millions and millions and millions of dollars and was the top supermodel in the world for like a long period of time. Like, that's not everyone else's reality. So in their reality, if you were a mid to late round pick and you've been getting pennies for the first 4 years, yeah, I want all my money. And also, I guess another big hang-up has been the 4 to 5 year thing. And if I'm Dak, I get it. Because I'm like, if I'm good, 4 years down the line, the market will be even greater. I'll be able to go back and be a free agent potentially or re-up my deal with the Cowboys or wherever. And still be young enough at like 31, 32 years old to still have at least one more big contract in me. If you tie him into 5 years, and I'm saying that's an extra year, then, like I said, it's longer to the next contract, and it's just like, maybe that's not worth it. Now, I don't know about the whole he wants $45 million thing. That may not be true. But I was saying, I can see why, if I'm him, I'd want a shorter-term deal, especially when the Cowboys have shown they're not really excited to pay me money. Like, why would I want to be tied into there for longer than I have to be if things don't work out? Like I said, if that was their guy, you would have already paid me. The quarterbacks, especially, don't have to beg for their money. They just get paid, and that's just how it happens. If they want you. Again, if they don't want you, then you do the Kirk Cousins route, get franchised for 2 years, then you move on. That's just how it goes. But if they want you there, they're going to make sure you're there. They'll give you an extension, they'll do whatever. And for whatever reason, they're playing this weird game with Dak. And now we are where we are. So, like, I don't think he'll be anywhere else. I'm assuming he'll get they give him a deal at some point before July, before training camp and stuff like that starts. But the fact that it's gone on this long is bad on both parties, like I said. Because they actually used leverage properly last year in order to avoid being in a situation now, and the Cowboys should just have paid him before the quarterbacks in his own class reset the market to a degree. And then Russell Wilson reset the market, because now you're basing things off of that. And you could argue Dak had a better year than Russ. And now it's like, why shouldn't I get at least Russell Wilson money? That doesn't seem like that illogical from Dak's perspective when you compare the stats and stuff. It's not that wild. And then I'm saying, if they wait too long now, Mahomes and Watson have signed, now the market's ruined again. So it's like I said, both teams kind of bungled this a little bit. And both sides have kind of messed this up a little bit, in my opinion. But we'll see how it will all play out in the near future. After this next break, speaking of contracts, there's another star player that's having a bit of a contract dispute of his own. And we will discuss that in the situation there and what I think he and the team should do. So yeah, we'll talk about that right after the break. Stay right there.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Talks between Jets and star safety Jamal Adams have reached an impasse in terms of contract in terms of their negotiations with his contract extension. Sources say, this is all from ESPN. The New York Jets and Jamal Adams have reached an impasse in contract talks. Sources confirmed to ESPN on Thursday, raising tensions between the team and its star safety. The two sides have had multiple conversations since the draft, but the Jets told him they prefer to wait on a long-term extension, and Adams wants a deal before the season. Reasonable. The Adams camp is upset, claiming the Jets are dragging their feet, which they kind of are. On Wednesday, the possibility of a trade came up in a conversation between the two sides, sources said, but there are conflicting accounts on how serious those talks were. Apparently, the Jets still remain intent, on signing Adams, who's only 24, to an extension have no desire to trade him, but Adams is open to a trade if his contract demands aren't met. More than half the teams in the league have reached out to the Jets to express interest, according to a source. And clearly, the biggest difference in terms of like the extension has been timing. They haven't discussed money yet, according to sources. Adam, eligible for a new contract now that he's completed his third season, said in January he wants an extension by the start of the 2020 season. He's due to make $3.5 million and jumps to $9.9 in 2021 on the fifth-year option. Conversely, the Jets don't feel there's a sense of urgency because they have Adams in a contract for two more years under team control. Makes sense, and they also have the franchise tag. Another component is the uncertainty created by the coronavirus pandemic, which could cause a massive impact on NFL revenue. Also true, Dak. I should have mentioned. Forgot to mention that in the last segment, but that's another reason why both sides kind of screwed this up in Dak's situation, just because who knows how much money the NFL could potentially lose, and then that could hurt Dak in the long run if he hasn't signed a new contract, and that could also hurt the Cowboys, because again, if Mahomes signs for an exorbitant amount of money, and then Dak has signed for something similar, then if the NFL loses money because they cancel games and no gate revenue, stuff like that, then that hurts your pockets on the Cowboys end. So the fact that they haven't figured this out yet, bad on both sides. But yeah, so since 2011, only 16 of 223 first-round picks received a new contract after their third season. Wow, really? Is that true? That's interesting. Did not know that. The most recent was Carolina Panthers running back Christian McCaffrey, who drafted 8th overall in 2017, 2 spots after Jamal Adams. Adams believes he's worthy of an exemption after being named an All-Pro and making 2 Pro Bowls in his first 3 years. He hasn't named his price publicly, but it is believed he wants to become the NFL's highest-paid safety. The Chicago Bears' Eddie Jackson has the highest average per year at 14.6. The Jets entertained talks at the deadline, with Dallas showing a lot of interest. Adams was mad that his name came up. then they have to talk him back off the ledge. General Manager Joe Douglas said in February his goal is to make Adams a Jet for life, but, I mean, as we saw with Gettleman, when he said they didn't sign Odell to trade him, people lie. It's hard to believe what anybody's saying in terms of that. At the conclusion of the draft, he said his plan was to reach out to Adams' agent to initiate contract talks. He did, but those talks haven't been fruitful. In the meantime, Adams is skipping the voluntary virtual offseason, which, like I said, I don't think Dak is doing. Which, again, would have... And if he is, and I missed that, shame on me. But if he's not, and he's being a part of that, because, again, new coach and stuff, then, again, that's hurting his leverage. If they think he's going to be here, then why would they give him a contract extension? And like I'm saying, that's kind of the similar concepts are working in both situations. Because from the Jets' perspective, they have him for 2 more seasons and potentially at least 1 year on the franchise tag. So that's 3 years. They could have him under control. From their point of view, why do we have to give you a new contract now? Because, like, where are you going to go? Or are you just, like, not going to play? Again, it's easy to skip voluntary workouts. Once stuff starts to get mandatory and the game starts to get played. I mean, Jamal Adams is a guy that seems to love football, so he's not... I would be shocked if he misses any games. And I'm saying, if players aren't willing to sit out, granted, it could go the Melvin Gordon route. That didn't really work out for him. But not every situation is like that. It could work out better. That's what I'm saying. So, if players aren't willing to do that, especially players in situations where they don't really have a good backup. Like, running back's an easy position to, like, find a suitable replacement for, which is why they were cool with letting Melvin Gordon sit out. Good safeties are hard to come by in the league, especially ones as good as Jamal Adams, guys that can make 2 Pro Bowls and an All-Pro team in 3 seasons. That's not easy to do. And he's one of the better ones in the league, obviously. So I'm saying those guys just don't go on trees. You're not just gonna be able to find, like, the Jets aren't just gonna be able to pick one. Though I do think they picked Austin Davis from Cal in the draft, I believe, and he's good. I know he has some injury concerns, which I believe is why he dropped a little bit, but he could potentially be good. I don't know if Jamal Adams is good, but he could be good, which maybe might have been Jamal Adams' insurance in case they trade him or he sits out or whatever. But like I'm saying, the fact that this deal hasn't gotten done is, like I said, a little twofold because the Jets, from a perspective, don't feel like they have to do anything. But if I'm Jamal Adams, I feel like I deserve a new contract. And that's another issue I have with fans, is that they're always like, oh, the player's drawing the contract, blah, blah, blah. Technically, yes. But also, if you were in a line of work, and it was proved over your 3 years with a company, you were better than most other people in your field, in your line of work, all while people around you have gotten raises and are maybe making more money, and they don't have the accolades that you have. Wouldn't you also then want a raise? Like, that seems like a reasonable thing. Now, I'm not going to say you're going to, like, quit your job straight up, and obviously there's no really way to hold out from jobs. But I'm just saying it wouldn't be shocking for somebody to ask for a raise in that scenario. Because, again, they feel like they've held up their end of the bargain. They've performed well. They've done what they've needed to do for the company. And then it seems reasonable that they would then want something on the back end of that, which, again, would be more compensation. And it just seems like fans are always like, they lose sight of that for whatever reason. They all just see, like, the players, like, being greedy, ask for more money, blah, 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 not honoring their contract per se. But I'm like, again, if you were, in theory, underpaid, I guess, again, it's hard for people to imagine somebody underpaid when they're a millionaire. But, like I'm saying, if Jamal Adams is getting, I think he's going to make, what, I think they said $3.5 million in the article this year. There are a lot of quarterbacks, a lot of safeties that are worse than Jamal Adams that are making more of that, or going to make more than that. At least in theory. Again, everything's debatable, but there are going to be safeties that are worse than Jamal Adams that are making more money than that. And if that is in fact true, then he should be rightfully asking for a raise. That's completely understandable. And especially when he's technically up for it. Like, I mean, it's not like it's year 1 or year 2 he's asking for this raise. This is when he's eligible to get the raise after this 3rd year. after they've already showed that they are willing to at least entertain offers for him. They didn't trade him to the Cowboys, but there was a lot of talks about it, and it seems like I guess they would have if the Cowboys offered their first round pick. They did not, which I mean, you could debate whether that was a good use or not. I mean, CeeDee Lamb's should be good for them, but they could use a safety. They have Clinton Dix and I think Xavier Woods back there right now, both of whom are not Jamal Adams. So there is that. I'm saying with that, then I'm saying in order for me to believe that you want me here long term, we should be able to have legitimate talks about a contract. And I'm saying if that's not happening, then I could see why Jamal Adams and his camp are unhappy. Because I'm saying it's already been demonstrated that you're willing to at least entertain my name in trade talks. Especially when Jamal Adams has said, all he said is that he wants to be a Jet, which is something not very many people want to do, but he wants to be a Jet. So cool. If you want a guy here, those are the kind of players you need on your team, guys that want to be in the city on the team. Like, those are the kind of guys you would want. And I'm saying they have that in a guy like Jamal Adams, who's very good also. It helps when they're good. And they're just like, yeah. Like, what do you mean, eh? Yeah. If you've seen Curb Your Enthusiasm or that Larry David GIF video, whatever, floating around out there, you get the reference. But, I'm saying they're just like, that's cool. But, like, we'll get to it when we get to it. And I'm just saying that's not a good way to do business, in my opinion. Because other players see that. Other draft picks see that. They traded their last first-round pick in Leonard Williams. Well, no, I don't want to say their last first-round pick, but, like, they traded a first-round pick previously in Leonard Williams. They now had trade talks with arguably the best player on their team and won't give him a contract extension. So I'm like, if I'm a guy that's coming up and looking for a new deal, how do I go about talks with them? If I feel like I've outperformed my current contract on my rookie deal, how do I go about having a conversation with them? Because it seems like they don't necessarily negotiate in good faith. Obviously, I don't know. This is all speculation. What I'm saying, if you look at the way they've handled Jamal Adams, you can't even pay your best players. How are you going to be willing to pay a guy that's on the mid tier or a lower tier guy? Like, why should I expect you to pay me if you're not going to pay the best player on our team and our leader? It just looks bad. And like I'm saying, I'm not going to say they're going to trade him. I'm not going to say they're not going to give him an extension. But I'm saying just the fact that this has gotten this messy is bad. Is a bad look, in my opinion, for the Jets. Not necessarily, it doesn't hurt Jamal Adams because again, he's right to ask for more money when he's done what he's done his first couple years in the league. But from the Jets' perspective, it's like, how can anybody trust the word of the GM if you say you want him here for life, but then you're also potentially open to trade him? Like, those two things don't go hand in hand. And I understand from their perspective that they can slow play this, they have no reason to. But I'm just saying, it's like, if a guy does good work for you, what is wrong with rewarding him? That shouldn't be a hard thing to do, in my opinion. Especially a guy like Jamal Adams, like I said, he's made 2 Pro Bowls, made an All-Pro team. Why not just pay the guy? Seems reasonable enough. He's not asking. Again, he's asking to be the highest paid safety. We could work on that, but it sounds like they haven't even gotten to the money part yet because they haven't negotiated the first part in good faith. So I'm just like, it's just a mess. It's a mess, but at least, like I said, he's willing to miss voluntary workouts. Hopefully he's willing to miss mandatory workouts. So just to show them, like, look, I'm not playing. And like I said, they probably, again, will slow play this, but once they see what difference he makes out there on the field for him, then he'll have more leverage, and then bada bing, bada boom, he can get his extension. But I'm just saying, it's been a rough offseason if you're trying to get paid, because those guys haven't got their extension, Dak and Jamal Adams. Clowney didn't get his extension. DeAndre Hopkins tried to get more money from the Texans, got traded. Who else? It took, like, a while for, like, the high price, like, wide receiver and Robbie Anderson. Well, I mean, Amari Cooper got paid. But then Robbie Anderson couldn't get his money from the Jets, had to leave. Yannick Ngakoue trying to get a new deal. They don't want to give him money. He's probably going to end up getting traded because he's not going to play under the franchise tag. Like, it's been a very bad offseason if you're a guy trying to get paid. And this was pre-corona, before they were worried about the coronavirus ruining the money. They already weren't paying people. And now that that's happening, they have even less reason. So we'll see how it goes, but it's been a rough situation for players looking to get money. And like I said, if Jamal Adams was on the open market, a lot of teams would want him. The Cowboys probably still would want him. The Ravens, I know he was talking with Tony Jefferson, I believe, on FaceTime. No, not FaceTime, Instagram Live. And he was talking about how he'd be a good fit there. He probably would be a good fit there. I mean, he's a good fit on 25 other, maybe up to 30 other teams, because, like, very few safeties in the league are better than him. So, like, literally any team would be willing, that has the cap space, would be willing to pay him. And that's another reason why I don't think he'll go to the Cowboys. So they already haven't really paid Dak. How can you expect? Because if you're going to trade for him, you're going to have to get a new deal done. How do you look paying him before you pay Dak? That would be a terrible move from a PR standpoint for the Cowboys. So that's why I don't think it'll happen. Baltimore, I'm not going to see it. But Cowboys, that'd be a little rough for me. But yeah, so we'll see how that goes. See what happens with that, because it's a rough situation, but one, that'll be resolved in a couple months, because like I said, either he'll show up for camp and put all this stuff behind him, or he won't, and then maybe they'll have to trade him. Or maybe they'll trade him before then, or give him a new deal before then. Who knows? But we will see what happens with that. So after this next break, we're going to come back and we're going to discuss a name that I don't believe I've thrown out that much in terms of documentaries I'd wanted to see, or documentaries I'd be interested in coming up, like to see next, done by ESPN. Like I said, a name I hadn't mentioned. Apparently, there's already a new documentary on his career in the works. So we'll talk about who that is, when it's going to come out, how long it's potentially going to be, and if I think it'll be worthwhile to tune into. I mean, it's a sports documentary, I'll probably watch it, but like, at the end of the day, it's supposed to be pretty long. So we'll discuss all those details right after this break. Stay right there.
Are you looking to get your college football fixed? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football, from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
So, apparently, a Tom Brady documentary is supposed to follow. I mean, obviously, it's not going to follow Last Dance in terms of like it's coming out this year, but it's supposed to follow Last Dance in terms of be a longer term documentary on like one specific player and arguably the best player in their sport. This is supposedly coming in 2021. The deal for a show about the NFL great comes on the heels of the cable network's breakout Michael Jordan series. And like I said, following the breakout success of Last Dance, ESPN has ordered another documentary, or docuseries, about an athlete considered the greatest in his sport, Tom Brady. The 9-part series produced by Gotham Copra's Religion of Sports and Brady's recently formed 199 Productions, because I think it was the 199th pick in the draft, I believe. I believe that's where that number is from, so at least that would make a lot of sense. It's called Man in the Arena, and will offer the quarterback's first-hand accounts of pivotal moments in his career, including all 9 Super Bowl appearances and the New England Patriots, say. It is set to air in 2021. 9 Super Bowl appearances over the course of 20 years is an achievement on an unmatched level. Very true. We are thrilled to have an opportunity to work with Tom Brady as he reflects on each of those 9 season-long journeys and pivotal moments that defined him. Connor Schell, Executive VP of Content at ESPN, said Thursday in a statement, Gotham Copra is a highly skilled filmmaker who I am confident will bring to life the story of an icon in a new and revealing way. Added Brady, I'm excited to have Company 199 in business with ESPN and Disney along with our Religion of Sports partners to launch this new series that gives an inside look into championship moments I've been blessed to experience. Through the series, we're defining key moments and challenges that were seemingly insurmountable, but through hard work and perseverance became career-defining triumphs in both victory and defeat. This compelling and powerful show will entertain, inspire, and have you on the edge of your seat. We can't wait to share this with the world. One key difference between The Last Dance and Man in the Arena, where the former aired more than 20 years after Jordan's final season. Brady's still playing, which was the point I was going to get to. The 42-year-old signed a 2-year contract with Tampa in March after 20 seasons with the Patriots. The Last Dance was obviously a huge hit, which is the reason why they're doing this, in my opinion. Averaging 5.65 million same-day viewers over its 10 episodes and significantly more via delayed and digital watching. All 10 installments drew larger audiences than the previously most-watched ESPN docuseries 2012's You Don't Know Bo. I guess that doesn't count O.J. Simpson. I've seen... Side note. When I was doing a little bit of research on seeing what different people's opinions were for, like, the last episode, and I was going to talk about my top... like 30 for 30s. A lot of people didn't include the O.J. Simpson one for whatever reason, but I guess I don't know if that's because it was. I don't know why that was, but I'm like, it's a 30 for 30, and it's like it wasn't like involved in a lot of people's lists. So I was like, I don't know if those numbers count that, but if it doesn't, I mean, the Bo one with Jackson one was really good, so I'm not that mad about that. It was just something. It was a weird thing I picked up. Man in the Arena is the second collaboration between Brady and Copra's Religion of Sports announced this week. Brady will also be the subject of an episode of Greatest Code, a short-form series from Copra focused on athletes that will run on Apple TV. Deadline first reported the news. Brady released a trailer for the series on Twitter on Thursday, which you can watch on his Twitter account if you haven't already seen it. So, like I said, with the success of Last Dance, I was going to create the possibility and the chance for other teams, other players, what have you, to have a Last Dance style docuseries. It was like multiple parts. You go deep into detail. Blah blah blah. So cool. That makes sense. But the question that's going to need to be asked: is Tom Brady as interesting as Michael Jordan was? Is that true? Because I don't think it's true. And if that is so, then why do we need 9 episodes on it? And again, maybe this is the Patriot hate in my heart coming out. But, like, who outside New England wants, and maybe even they don't because they're I don't know how mad they are still, but they might be still a little mad about him leaving the Bucs. Who wants to watch 9 episodes worth of a documentary on Tom Brady? Sold. Unless we're going to delve into the cheating. Allegedly. If we're going to delve into Spygate, if we're going to delve into Deflategate, all that stuff, cool. Then I might be a little bit more on board. I'm still not on board for 9 parts, but I'm at least on board for a Tom Brady doc. I mean, they were going to do one anyway. But, like I said, like with MJ stuff, they touched on the gambling, they touched on him being a terrible teammate, different things like that. Like, it wasn't all fluff, obviously. If you're Horace Grant and others, you maybe disagree. But it wasn't all fluff, in my opinion. There were some things that they talked about, and obviously the death of his father. Like, there's things that they talked about that they didn't necessarily have to talk about, because they could have just skipped over that and just talked about the good. But also, again, going along with that 97-98 season, there was a lot that had built up to that point to get them there. And that's why it made it so compelling. That's why it was worth retelling, because there was so much to touch on to get you to understand the magnitude of that moment. If we're just talking about Tom Brady's career, is he as interesting as Michael Jordan was? And the answer is, like, unequivocally no. Mainly just because football players aren't as globally, or just even within the country, but definitely not as globally popular as other sports stars are, because the whole helmet and different things. Like, obviously, do a lot of people know who Tom Brady is? Yes, of course. But in his time, everybody knew who Michael Jordan was. Like, everybody. You did not need to be a basketball fan, you did not need to be a Bulls fan, you didn't need to really even be a sports fan. And you still probably knew the name Michael Jordan. Now, granted, a lot of people do know the name Tom Brady, but I think if you go overseas, like, how many people in China or in, like, Europe or different places like that would know Tom Brady? How many people, if they saw him overseas, would stop in the middle of the street and ask for his autograph and back up traffic? Or even just in the States, how often would that happen? And I'm saying the reason for that was because of the cultural or just the phenomenon of the Michael Jordan persona and like his star, and that's not something that Tom Brady has, in my opinion. Though again, great player, in my opinion, the best quarterback of all time. So that the GOAT angle, cool, that's a good one to have. But once you get past that, it's like, what do these two people have in common that would allow you to do 9, 10 episodes on them? And on top of that, like they mentioned, his career isn't done, which I think is a very important aspect of this. Like when they talked about Jordan, when they talked about the documentary, they didn't touch on any of his time with the with the Wizards. It ended in the 97-98 finals, a little bit of the aftermath. That was really it. That's when it stopped. Even though Jordan and other people went on and did other things, they didn't really touch on that too much. Because the documentary had an overarching theme or thing that they were following. They were chronicling the 97-98 season, and they gave background on different players and different events that were important to let you know why 97-98 was as big as it was, and like kind of the things that they went through during that season. With Tom Brady's career still in the balance, well, not in the balance, but like still going on, how do you finish the documentary? Like, do you just stop at the last championship, potentially? Because I'm saying the last championship could be this year. I'm not just going to say I'm going to pick the Bucs to win the Super Bowl, but I'm saying it's possible. So I'm saying, is that, like, how much of this season is involved? Because if it's coming out in 2021, there's only, I mean, you can add stuff. There's only so much you can add unless you're adding it as the year goes along. But again, you got to work on other episodes as the year goes along. So it's like, how much stuff are you doing? And also, the big thing with that is because, well, the big part of the reason why they could do such a long documentary on the last season of Jordan with the Bulls is because they had all that exclusive footage. How much exclusive footage does this company or his own company have of him that we don't already know about? Like all this behind the scenes stuff and different things, like even just like some of the game footage, like what they showed on Wednesday with the Game 6 in HD, like that was footage we didn't know we had before, but now that we have it now, so that's like, all right, that makes sense to why we'd want to see that. How much new, never before seen footage is going to be in this 9 hours? Not to say there isn't going to be any, but like that was another big selling point, was the fact that they followed the team around for the entire season. So it makes sense. It's not like there's been social media and stuff. There hasn't been a camera crew following around Tom Brady for the entirety of his career. That's just not what's been happening. So I'm saying, where are you going to get 9 hours worth? Are you just going to have him go through each of the 9 championship seasons, and that's the point of the doc? And do not touch on any of the other seasons? I mean, if that's the case, then they do like a Football Life on, not Football Life, but I think it was America's Game, whatever it was, where like chronicles the champion for that year. All right, so he's won 6. That means that he's been on there 6 times. How much different is that going to be from this, other than it's just going to be all Tom Brady's perspective? And also, that's the other point. Like, they interviewed a lot of different people. Now, again, you could talk about what Orr said and the way it was edited and stuff. But, like, how many different people are they going to be able to talk to this season about the doc? Unless they're starting now, which they also kind of can't, because you can't do in-person interviews. Everything's going to be over on via Zoom due to the coronavirus. Obviously, they can interview Tom Brady, but they can't interview anybody else not via Zoom, and I don't think that makes for a good documentary. Or as good as it could be. Saying is all Brady's perspective. I mean, granted, like I said, last night was a lot of Jordan's perspective, but you had other people talking. Opponents, teammates, former teammates, coaches, executives, different things like that. Journalists, people that are just around Chicago at the time. Like, you had that. Or is that what they're going to do for this doc? Is there just going to be Tom Brady talking about each of the 9 Super Bowl appearances? Which, again, in the age of social media, how much is there to delve into deeper? Not that there isn't more to learn, because obviously there's always more to learn about information. Like I said, Google and stuff is readily available, and there's still a lot of stuff we learned about or didn't know, or footage we hadn't seen coming from the O.J. Simpson documentary, but that's kind of what documentaries should be for. They're informative. Like, what new things are we learning about here? Other than just getting his perspective on the 9 championships. I'm saying that's all we're getting. I don't know. You can keep it. I'm not going to say I don't want to watch a Tom Brady documentary. I definitely would. But 9 parts? Seems a bit excessive. In my personal opinion. And like I said, my biggest issue, well, one of my biggest issues with this is that the fact that his career is unfinished. Because in theory, it should be following his career. Unless he just assumes he's not going to get to a championship this year. Which, I mean, if he just wants to talk about the 9 previous, alright, fine, that is what it is. But I'm saying, if you're going to chronicle his whole entire career, why not wait until it's done? Like, what's the rush? Like, did we really need a documentary with Tom Brady, like, in 2021? Was that something like everyone was asking for? No, in my opinion. So I'm saying, if that is in fact the case, then what's the rush? We could do this documentary at any point in the future. He's still playing. Like, why now? Again, I understand there's been success with the Last Dance thing, but why the rush to do it now? Like, what are we rushing into? And obviously, I don't know if you guys saw it, but I forget what platform it was. It was like Amazon Prime or Hulu or whatever. But I know he was doing a documentary following the leading up to Super Bowl 52, because it was thought that maybe he was going to retire at the Super Bowl if they won. So he was doing a bunch of stuff leading up to that, and they lost, and that completely ruined the end of the documentary, because the documentary the whole point of it was for him to win the Super Bowl, and he didn't, and then that ruined that. So I'm saying it's another situation here. If he has a bad season this year, which he probably won't, but if he does, like, you're still gonna watch, but like, who's really gonna be that enamored to be like, I need to see this Tom Brady doc right now? And plus, a part of the reason this was helped out by was the fact that there was nothing else on. Granted, they were gonna have the Last Dance in June when there was no basketball, but like, people were literally locked in their houses. Like, they couldn't go anywhere at all. Just so they know, not say they know their option, but like, that adds to those numbers. When Tom Brady's doc comes out, in theory, hopefully we'll have a better understanding of the virus and have a vaccine or whatever, so people will be able to be out more freely. And so who's going to say they're going to be as locked in for this? Just as it's Tom Brady. And I'm saying Tom Brady was never as big as Michael Jordan was. But yeah, I don't want to go on too long about that, but I've already gone on long enough. But yeah, it's just my 2 cents on it. It just seems like, I don't know who asked for this, but it's what we're getting. So we're going to live with it. And I know most sports fans, especially most football fans, whether you love or hate the Patriots, you're probably going to watch. Like, I'm going to watch, but I'm just like, I don't really know if we needed 9 parts on it. But that's just me. So after this next break, we're going to come back and have a discussion that I've been wanting to have about the opinions of the average sport fan versus the former player, or current player. Because there's been a lot of opinions, and there was a discussion that was had on social media about this, and I wanted to kind of have this discussion on the podcast. So we will discuss that right after the break. So stay right there.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
GSMC Podcast Network. So, Austin Rivers, Austin Rivers was talking to Seth Curry. This was yesterday or Wednesday. Well, I guess yesterday was Wednesday because I was here recording this on Thursday. But yeah, so it was a Wednesday night, and they were on the Undefeated platform. I don't know if it was like FaceTime or Zoom, whatever And they were discussing things. And mainly the thing they were discussing was the ESPN Top 74 list that came out. That I talked about. That was bad. But, whatever. Their point was that, because they were talking mainly about D-Wade. And the fact that I think he was ranked, like, it was either like 25 or 26, somewhere around there. And like one spot, I think it was 26. And one spot below him was Giannis. And one spot above him was Kawhi. And the fact that D-Wade should have been higher. Now that, boom, Austin, I'm on the same page with you. You're not going to hear this. But if you somehow you do, I was on the same page with you there. I believe that Giannis was too high. It was one of the things I believe that I mentioned. Because again, what has he really accomplished at this point in his career? He's won an MVP. Great. But like, he's made out of the first round, I think, one time in his career. And that was last season, where he lost a 2-0 lead with home court advantage. I'm just saying, I don't know what he's done to get to top 30 player of all time in the history of the NBA. And then even with Kawhi, he has two rings, 2 Finals MVPs, Defensive Player of the Year, All NBA teams, All-Star teams, stuff like that. But even still, D-Wade has 3. He has more All-Stars, more All-NBAs at the moment, obviously not as many Defensive Player of the Years and stuff like that. But also, I guess, D-Wade, I think, it was the year, 09? I think there was one year where, D-Wade was, a legitimate MVP candidate. And you could argue Kawhi is one of the best players in the world. That's definitely not debatable. But, when is with the load management thing with his knee situation, when is he ever going to be in the MVP race? He's not going to play enough games. And I'm saying D-Wade was that, while also being the clear-cut best player on a championship team. Now, I know Kawhi won that Finals MVP in 2014 with the Spurs, though they were just great. They just dismantled the Heat that year. Great as a team overall. But that team in 2005-2006 won the finals because of D-Wade. They did not have D-Wade, they weren't going to win. Now, I'm not certain that the Spurs would have won without Kawhi, but he wasn't as important. So again, that was his major argument. Was that D-Wade was rated too low. Cool. I'm with you there. But then that's when he pivoted, and then this is where I come in. So he was saying that the list must have been made by guys that didn't make their JV basketball team. And he said that he would love to see a list with players and former players, and these are the type of guys that should be making lists. They shouldn't allow guys that never played the sport to talk about the game. And that's where I because I hate when players do this. Now again, obviously I'm a person that did not play at the professional level, though I did play multiple sports up and through high school. Could have played in college, chose not to. So it was not I wasn't the typical, when they think of journalists, they think of all of them being as bad athletes that just never made it, or that just weren't good, got picked last, all that stuff. They have no idea what the game is. Not everybody's like this. Some guys were good; they chose to go other paths. Some guys just gave it up for whatever reason. Some guys maybe got hurt or whatever. There's a lot of reasons to why the guy didn't make it professional. Maybe they were good, but not professional level good. Because guys that are good enough to go from high school to college aren't always good enough to go from college to the pros. It's just there's very few people who make it to professional level in any sport. But I'm saying, yet and still with that, a lot of players had this same belief that if you didn't play the game, you shouldn't be able to talk about it. And while I get their point, because obviously if you played the game, in theory, you have a better understanding of what's happening, both on the field, in the locker room, what the players go through on a day-to-day basis, stuff like that. You have a better understanding of that. But if we're just talking about simple understanding of the game, you don't even need to have played the sport at a high level in high school to understand basketball or understand football or whatever. Because especially nowadays where game film and all these things are readily available, you can watch the game. Well, you can watch the game on TV. You can look up clips on YouTube. You can read in-depth film reviews, film breakdowns. You can break down the film on your own. If you went to a lot of these quote-unquote internet scouts, just take the All-22 film, especially from the NFL, and they can just see things, break things down, get a better understanding, listen to guys that were former players that know a lot about the sport, listen to them talk about stuff. Obviously, there's the league passes or the game passes where you can watch games that aren't just on TV, so you can understand more about the sport because you're seeing a bunch of different teams play as opposed to just your favorite team versus the team in your market. So it has never been better than it is now in order to get as much information as you could to better understand something. Like, there's been no point in history where, like, over these last how many ever years since, like, the internet's really been a big thing, Google's really been a big thing, like the game film and all the like I said, the game passes, the league passes, stuff like that have really been ramped up to where you'll be able to better understand it than there is right now currently where we're at. So if you want to understand the game at a higher level, you can relatively easily. So that's number one. So I resent that for that aspect. And two, the reason I resent it is because a lot of former players have bad opinions. With this mindset or this philosophy, you would think that everybody that ever played the game at a professional level would have a great opinion on something. And that's just not factually accurate. I mean, you look at, I forget if it was Paul Pierce today, if it was Wednesday, but he talked about his top five. And the reason why he didn't have LeBron in his top five is mainly because he's biased. Which, I mean, again, everybody's a little bit biased. But players are more biased, in my opinion, because they played against these guys. So if they didn't like them as a person, they're just going to get them out, as opposed to, like, if you don't have that kind of attachment to someone unless they just were on your rival, like, you're going to go through say whether they're good or not. Like, even people that are Jordan stands, if you will, acknowledge how good LeBron is. Like, it's not hard for them to do. Because at a certain point, you kind of just, you can't be that level of bias, but when you're a former player and you played against them, they knocked you out of the team out of the playoffs multiple times, alright, maybe you could be a little bit more biased. But yeah, so, he had his debate. And his argument was the reason why he didn't have him in his top five is because he didn't build anything. He didn't build up any organization. He left organizations, even though, and then, like, they already had a culture when he was there and kind of assembled his team as opposed to, like, building things from the ground up. Alright, but then the guys he had in his top five were, I think it was Jordan, it was Kareem, it was Bill Russell, I think it was Magic, and it was Kobe. So you can get down to Kobe. By the time Kobe comes along, the Lakers are already well decorated. Now, he stayed there his whole career, that's perfectly fine. But he didn't build anything. I mean, the Lakers' culture of winning was already established before he got there. Look at Kareem. He was a guy that won in, I think it was Milwaukee. The game with the Lakers already, they didn't have as many rings, but they were considered one of the prominent franchises in the sport at the time. Okay, and then obviously he had a lot of success there. But it wasn't like the Lakers weren't the Lakers before he got there. Like, they were still the Lakers, they just didn't have as many rings. And obviously they had more rings when he left. Similar thing to Magic, like, he got there, Kareem was already there. Like I said, the franchise already had some levels of success before he got there. It's not like, again, he built them from the ground up. Now, when you talk about Jordan, obviously they've only won championships with him on the roster. And then Bill Russell, it's hard to say just because the league was in its infancy, so of course someone would have to start from ground zero. And he's happened to be on the team with a bunch of good players that he was on one of the good teams in the 8-team league. That's how it happened. But I'm saying, in order for him to say that about LeBron, then he's basically he's refuting his entire legacy. Because the only time, and this is why I wish the Celtics did not win that championship in 2008. Because no one team has gotten more mileage out of a championship than the 2008 Celtics team. Because of that, you can have guys like Paul Pierce, who are great players in their own right, but talk down on players like LeBron and stuff and say, like, oh, you never built anything, blah, 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 as if the Celtics were homegrown. They acquired Ray Allen. They acquired Kevin Garnett. Obviously, they had Paul Pierce there, had Rondo there, I think, but it's not like they were all they weren't the Warriors. They brought guys in. They were the first real Big Three in the new era. Like, the term Big Three exists because of the Celtics. So I'm saying, if you're dogging LeBron for not establishing a culture or whatever, just hopping on to something else, alright, that's kind of fair, but at the same time, the Heat had, one championship before he got there. They have They have 2 more since he left. Before he left. Pat Riley had been successful. It's not like he's not Phil Jackson. Like, it's not before Kobe and Shaq got him. Like, he had 6 rings coming in. Like, Pat Riley's been a successful coach. They have a good culture there, but, like, he wasn't there. And also, it was Spoelstra. Like, he was the coach. He hadn't won anything yet. As a head coach himself. Obviously, he had D-Wade there, but he'd only won once. And again, in the day and age we live in now, very few teams win without multiple superstars. The Raptors are really the only team in the last, 10 plus years to win with at least 2, maybe not superstars, but at least 2 all-stars. Like I'm saying, if you go back around the years, Warriors, Cavs, Warriors, though, I forget if Klay Thompson was an all-star that year, but he was at least all-NBA caliber guy by that point. Then you got the Spurs, who had Kawhi, but had older guys who were all going to the Hall of Fame. Then you have the Heat teams. Then you have the Mavs. Okay, so since the Mavs, because the Mavs were just Dirk and a bunch of very solid players. Then before then you got the Lakers, Celtics. Like I said, in the new day and age, you need multiple superstars to win, more or less. That's just how it goes. It's not something new. And also, I would argue that when you go back to Cleveland, what had Cleveland won? Obviously, he had built a team up. The organization had let him down completely. He left. He didn't have to come back. He decided to come back and won a championship there. The only championship Cleveland, the Cavs have ever won. And he's the part of him being that good is the only reason why he would have came back, is that because all the best moments in Cavalier basketball, more or less, are synonymous with LeBron James. So I don't know what that point was. So he's had multiple bad points, and also apparently, as they reported in the video, or with the graphic, he had LeBron at number 5 last week, and just randomly switched to a Kobe, just for the sake of the argument, so that tells me his point is mildly invalid. And it goes to Kendrick Perkins, who's said nothing but foolishness for like the past month or so. People don't even acknowledge him. And I guess a lot of that ESPN stuff, not just ESPN, but a lot of sports talk stuff is just kind of sensationalized and clickbaity to where you just say something outrageous and gets a lot of clicks and gets some interactions and stuff like that, and then you just move on. And that's kind of what people do now, it seems. Basically, I remember Kendrick Perkins, his top 5 teams of all time included the 96-97 Bulls, which again isn't even the 72-10 team if I'm correct. I think that's the first time they played the Jazz. The 2000-2001 Lakers, they're a good team. That's fine if you want to have them in the top 5. Not number 2, but whatever. The 03-04 Pistons. The 07-08 Celtics. They're not even the best Celtics team of all time. So that's foolish. The same with the Pistons. The 03-04 Pistons aren't even the best Pistons team of all time. And the 2012-2013 Heat. That's fine. I can respect that. But I'm just saying, so these are 2 former players that have given opinions that many people would argue are not very good. But I should believe them more because they played the game? Says who? And again, they're not alone. You listen to Inside the NBA, you watch it mainly for the entertainment, but not everything Chuck and Shaq say is right. You see a lot of things that either don't make sense or factually inaccurate or turn out to be wrong. No, just because they played the game and they know more about basketball, they forgot more about basketball than I might ever know, doesn't mean that they give better opinions than me or anybody else that never played the game professionally. A lot of former players, going to football, Deion Sanders has his Game Day Prime show, and he says a lot of things that a lot of people would argue with. And he's not alone. A lot of former players say a lot of foolish things. It's fine. Not every opinion is right, but just to say that you should only listen to the former players because they played the game, you're not going to learn that way. Because a lot of these guys aren't giving out good information. So and like I said, Austin Rivers not the first person to say this. He won't be the last person to say this. But I've always hated this argument because it belittles a person's ability to gain knowledge. So basically, I should listen to any professional in anything, which is fair. But I shouldn't listen to anybody ever unless they've done something professionally. So if there's a guy that get like a license or whatever, a degree or whatever you need to like fix a car. But he knows how to fix a car. I shouldn't listen to him just because he's not a quote unquote professional. I shouldn't listen to a person that understands technology just because they didn't major in or get a degree in IT. Like why would it only apply for football or sports? Not necessarily just football, but you wouldn't say that about life. Like if people know something, they know something. You can gain information any type of way. You don't need to be a professional in that field to understand it and have knowledge about it. But like I said, when it comes to sports, all of a sudden now, if you didn't play the game professionally, like you shouldn't be allowed to talk. You know what I'm saying? I understand it to a degree, but at the same time, a lot of former players say things, and current players too, say things that just aren't right. But I should just listen to them because they're a former player and I'm not. Seems a little backwards. That's all I'm saying. Don't want to go too long on this. I've already been a little long. But I'm just saying, that opinion, I've always hated that opinion. I will continue to hate that opinion. And maybe it's just because I'm biased as a non-professional athlete. I would still think, even if I were a professional athlete, you see the opinions of guys on TV that were former players or are current players or whatever. And a lot of them are wrong or give bad opinions. They're not always correct. But if I only listen to them, then that's all only way I'm going to get my information. And there's a lot of information out there to be gotten from people that didn't have to play the game to know it. So I'm just saying, that aspect of that argument has always been a little, it's just always been a little weird to me. Because like I said, we live in an era with so much information, so much technology, so many ways to grow your knowledge of something. Why would I just listen to someone that played the game as opposed to people that because not everybody is like a true lover of the game. They just happen to be good at it. They just, like I said, they were just good at basketball, good at football. So they play. They're not a person that studies a lot out at home. They're not guys that are going to watch film of other teams, other players, try to get better. Like that's not the way everybody is wired. But because they were professional and I'm not, I should listen to them over not even just me or just anybody. Like, come on, that doesn't make sense. They know it doesn't make sense, but again, as a current player, they can say those type of things. But I'm just saying that's foolish to me. But yeah, like I said before, I go on forever about this because I could. That'll do it for me here today, here on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. I want to thank you guys again, as always, for listening to me talk. I know I talk a lot, but I'm passionate about sports, so I have a lot to get off my chest. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're on top of when we drop our latest stuff. Also, if you could please give us a 5-star rating or a review. If you like what you've heard today, you like what you've heard in the past, I would appreciate that. And we all would appreciate that here at the network. So please do that. If you don't have to, but if you want to, please feel free. Also, if you're on social media, we're on social media, so you can find us there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss. You can tell me how you feel about that topic. Maybe you feel that pro athletes or former athletes know everything. We should only listen to them. Tell me why you want to watch a 9-part Brady documentary and I'm wrong in my opinion. Tell me how you think the Dak contract situation, Jamal Adams situation is going to play out. Tell me if you think it's a good or bad idea, if the NBA should return, all that fun stuff. I'm here. We're all here. We love to talk about sports. We love to talk about it with you guys on social media. So like I said, find us there. And before I get out of here, I want to, as always with every episode, give a shout out to the essential workers, nurses, first responders, firefighters, doctors, grocery store people, delivery people, especially delivery people. Like I said, any worker that's at the deal, or any retail, or like I said, grocery store environment has to deal with people on a daily basis. I know people can be a lot. As a person who used to work in a movie theater, I know. So I know you've probably seen some wild stuff, heard some wild stuff. I know you've seen some wild stuff on social media if you've been paying attention to it. So shout out to you guys. You guys are keeping us safe. You guys are keeping businesses open, allowing people like me to get groceries, be able to get food, get supplies, whatever we may need, delivering our packages because we're not leaving our houses, doing a lot of stuff. So again, shout out to you guys. And then obviously, like I said, nurses and doctors are helping keeping us healthy and safe and things like that. So all the essential workers that have had to work throughout this entire pandemic, I can't give a shout out to all of you individually, but I will give you a shout out as a whole, like I said, on every episode that I can. So shout out to you guys. Will that do it for me here today? I've been Chris Blades. That has been my time. And until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.